and you've just written a $300 million check behind yours. Tell us what you're seeing that make this moment happen.
Andreas, great to be here. Thank you for having me. We're very, very glad and proud that we actually were able to pull this off. Um, yes, we're concentrating, of course, on AI, but also we're looking into other things as well. What made us so strongly believe that AI is the thing to go for now? Of course, is we think this is an underlying game changer technology. It has come to stay. So AI has come to stay. The question, of course, for every VC and every founder and the entire ecosystem is what of the things that have come are staying and which will unfortunately be just castles of dream, right? We actually were when we talked to our mothership, who wrote the check, not us, for the 300 million or made the commitment. Let's put it this way. We had very intensive discussions about our what we call search fields. So our thesis. And one is, as I said, the AI thesis, but we're not neglecting all the other things we have been looking into the past. And we're believing that you will also find founders there.
Yeah. Fund one was very much fund autonomous vehicles. Fund two is very much sustainability and supply chain. Can you talk a bit about what you learned from those two funds and what you're carrying over with you?
Yes. Fund one, we made quite a few bets, as you said, in autonomous, besides many others. And it was very interesting to learn how the hype cycle for important technologies works, right? So when we started looking into the space, there were tons of opportunities, a lot of ideas, and over time, the technology matured. And maturing means also that you have some moments of uh, reorganization, basically, where a lot of companies either merged or unfortunately went out of business, and where then the real winners distill from what you have. And we were lucky to have had good choices. So we were invested in Kodiak Autonomous Trucking. They just went IPO. We're in May Mobility, a company that's still very much around, and a couple others, other investments. What have we learned? Sometimes you got to be very, very intensive in your due diligence and bet on the right team and bet on the right technology. And then, of course, there's a portion of luck. And also, I think what differentiates us from other VCs is that we can bring a lot of knowledge to the table just because we have so much engineering in the background. We have so many different folks that work with these technologies. Autonomous might be a little sharp edged, but if you look into AI, I mean, AI will change our workplace anywhere, anytime, and therefore we will have tons of people at BMW that will care for it and work with it, and we can use that experience to actually go forward. And you also asked for fun too, and I don't want to forget about this. So sustainability was the major driver, CO2 reduction. And as you know, our mothership has done an extremely good job on fulfilling their targets. And we are hoping continuously to contribute to this with investing in new technologies, also in the sustainability space. We're not writing this off or we're not ditching the space. But on the forefront of technology and change right now is AI. And we are still, as I said, looking into the other search fields as well.
Marcus, with 300 million behind you, you're of course not investing only at the super early stage. You're also investing at the slightly later stage, where almost any big investor will know about the companies that are out there. That means that there will be competition, and it's both competition with other VCs to actually be able to invest, but it's also competition to get to the right decision. Um, what do you think that makes you able to make better investments and also be a better helper, a better funder of the companies that you invest in?
Yeah, I think it's a very healthy and normally very friendly competition because you're saying it so strictly. So usually the good thing about VC is we're joining forces, right? So we're building syndicates, and of course sometimes there's not enough room in a syndicate, and one or two have to be left out, unfortunately. But what are we bringing to the table? I think as a CVC we have this glorious advantage that we are actually combining best of both worlds, and we continue to do so, right? So we have the engineering power in the background of folks that might be interested in work with you. And I always say, if I find an expert at BMW, it must be an important topic, and I can actually look into an investment. So what we are trying to do is connect those companies early, even before we invest, with our business units, and see if there's any overlap, if there's any interest. And once we get to a point where we actually can understand this, We then do our real due diligence, also financially. And if we come to terms that we invest, there's no obligation for the business units to work with this company, only on a volunteer basis in terms of if it benefits both parties. And often, even if we invest a little later than maybe seed stage, often those companies need a couple more years to mature. We'll see how this works out with AI. Everything is faster. But those companies need to mature. And once they're more mature, they have product market fit, they've proven out, then maybe the very critical automotive industry is also a helper, an additional helper, and maybe a customer someday. So I think that's a benefit that we can bring to the table above many of the purely financial VCs, right?
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you about some of the knocks that are typical for CVC. You've got 30 exits. You've got 1.1 billion under management. You've got a corporate backer with deep pockets. All of that, of course, sounds really awesome. However, there's a lot of stigma around CVCs, which is that decisions are slow, there's strategic conflict. Can you really trust the team behind this? Won't the executive team just get rid of it the next time the CEO changes? All of that stuff. How have you managed to build BMW i Ventures to avoid those traps?
Yeah, and I'm really outspoken about this because I think it's extremely important. I really believe in CVC as an instrument, and I think every big corporation should have one, should at least think about it and manage it well. But it is very much about the managing, right? So what are the expectations on a CVC, and how do I set up the CVC? And one of the portions is you have to really give up some of the control. So when we look at the control mechanisms, we are built like a financial VC. We go to our LP, single LP, and we apply for the money, and we have to go through all the loops and hoops to get a sign off of, in our case, 300 million. But once it's committed, we're pretty autonomously, right? We can self-sufficiently decide. We make fast decisions. We are the ones sitting on the board. And as I said before, as it is on a volunteer basis, we're trying to grow those companies. And growing means we're connecting them with BMW, but we're also connecting them with other maybe OEMs or tier ones or tier twos in order to make them become a substantial company. And now to your question about continuity, I think that's a very important point. And we just, as we start our third fund, we can prove that we have now 15 years under the belt investing, and 10 years out of this fund structure. And the fund structure has proven to be very successful both ways, financially, also strategically. And therefore, I think that is a very good setup. And this is also the reason why we don't change too much. We just adjust to the new trends, but we are really wanting to stay with this setup. And you also mentioned as a big sort of Damocles, basically a CEO change. And as you know, we just had a CEO change at BMW yesterday or the day before at the General Assembly. But we are very confident. We know our new CEO, Milan Nadakovic, very well, and we do know that we will be supported going forward, which really makes us play as a very, very good team throughout the, let's say, BMW family.
Yeah. Marcus, maybe you could speak to the founders that are listening. How should founders diligence a CVC? Because I think by now most have learned how to diligence an angel. There's a lot about that. They know how to diligence a VC. Are there anything around diligencing a CVC that's different from a normal financial investor?
I actually, well, yes, you have to look for that influence that might be exerted by the mothership or the LP. That you always have to look out for. Also in some of the financial VCs, by the way, because there you also have institutional investors in the background that might be very pushy. I think the best way to actually look into this is a track record, right? And references. So you need to find other companies and honestly speak to your VCs and also CVCs about giving you references where you can talk to portfolio companies and actually find out how they have been behaving during the course of the time. And then I think it is very important that you, as a founder, try to have a very open relationship with the CVC. So I think there's not much meaning and sense in hiding information. So once you've agreed upon due diligence, let's put it, so like really intensively testing the possibility for a partnership and investment, you have to be very, very open. You have to be very transparent, and then you can request the same thing from the CVC. And that paired with a reference, I think should give you a good understanding if you have a fair player, or if you have somebody that will, be more annoying and more obnoxious later on in your process. We are also very much fond of playing plain vanilla, as we always say. Like, we do a lot of investments in the US where there's Delaware corp law. And actually, I'm really, over the years that I've worked in the space, I've really learned to appreciate the 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 clear structure. There's 1,000 rules that you can play by, so that all the possibilities are there. But generally, there's a lot of market understanding. So this is market, this is not market, this you can do, this you can't do, and this is very unusual to do. And then therefore, you have a very good rhythm of moving fast. That's a little sad about the European jurisdictions, that you have so many exceptions, and then this country is different than that. So I'm really personally looking forward to a EU Inc., where we have a set framework where we all can speed up the process together, right?
And that is luckily very soon to happen.
Yes.
Incredibly important work being done, especially by Andreas Klinger and the team, of course. Marcus, thank you so much for joining me today. Congratulations and once again on the 300 million.
Thank you.
What a feat and what a needed feat for our ecosystem as well. Thank you so much, Marcus.
Thank you, Andreas. It was a pleasure talking.